Excuse me, Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, the #1 sports information program in America, the Breakfast Bankroll, with your host, the sports broker, Jeff Dawson.
Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your Breakfast Bankroll for Thursday, March 23rd, 2023. The madness is back today. 4 great games. The biggest spread today is 5 and a hook, which I'm going to get into the games with good friend and colleague, Mr. Julian Edlow of DraftKings. I saw him early this morning on his guest appearance with Mitch and Paulie. Good morning, Mitch and Paulie. Hope all is well in your world as they're talking to Mike Palm right now. So without further ado, let's bring him in. The one and only Mr. Julian Edlow.
A few days of rest, Jeff, and now we're back into the madness.
You know, I'd like to say the unluck of the draw, Julian. About 6-7 weeks ago, the ECSI VIBs, we released the must bust, the Razorbacks. Go grab them at 35-40 to 1 as we saw some momentum building. We had Houston a long time ago. We talked about UCLA, had them a long time ago. And, of course, UConn, which I have right here. The problem is they're all on the damn right side here. I can't even sprinkle a little. You know, I wish I could play logos and move 2 over here and 2 over here. What have you seen of the madness, my brother?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty nice path, and things can always go wrong, but a pretty nice path for Alabama all the way to the national title game at this point. I would pick a lot of teams on the right side of the bracket to beat Alabama in that game, but Houston, Texas, UCLA, UConn, Gonzaga, like these teams all have to duke it out to get there. So yeah, I have a Bama 11-1 future that I was feeling down about because of the Brandon Miller situation, and this path has suddenly cleared for them. I still have an Alabama Elite 8 ticket at -105 on DK Sportsbook, so I need them to win this San Diego State game. Just need them outright there. But I've bet more of them to go to the Final Four and to make the final because that path is so clear. Now I've bet more than I should probably because I do have a 40-1 Creighton ticket in pocket, and I'll be pretty shocked personally. I know San Diego State's getting some sharp action. But with the 7.5, that is, I'll be pretty shocked if we don't get that Creighton Alabama game to go to the Final Four. So I would feel pretty good about that. But yeah, I think on that right side, I have Texas beating Houston. I have them to win that region. We can talk games tonight, but I ultimately do think we could get a UConn UCLA matchup in Vegas to go to the Final Four. Those two teams rank very similarly to me. I don't know who I would have in that game. But it's tough to take futures out of that side. I have a little bit of Texas and a little bit of UCLA. But my biggest ticket on that side actually is an 18-1 Gonzaga ticket. And I personally like UCLA in this game. So I have kind of a personal sized play on UCLA and then an added hedge for that 18-1 ticket that, if Gonzaga wins, I'll lose a big chunk on UCLA, but keep that ticket alive into the Elite 8. And then probably bet UConn against Gonzaga, honestly, but figure that out when we get there.
I got the UConn shirt pull over, and I got my UCLA ECSI shirt on today, so I'm well represented there. They're all coin flips in my eyes. I'm looking at this, and just from the eye test and the market, the UCLA ZAG number to me smells a Zag number. That's just my eyes, and my gut is a little queasy. I think UCLA is the better team this year. I really, really do. I just think that number's just too enticing for the UCLA backers. I think the average Joe sees the Zags, see them as underdogs. How many times do you see them as underdogs? And they're just going to jump there. Do you agree with the line, Julian?
I thought it would maybe grow to UCLA 2.5, which it did, but it came back. And I guess that makes sense because people are going to bet Gonzaga as a dog, even though they're the lower seed this time around. This isn't the 1 seed, 2-loss teams. This is a 3 seed, 5-loss team. So it's a little different. Some people will say that's playing to their advantage. I'm on UCLA because of the balance at this time of year. They have an elite ranking. They have a very strong offense and an elite ranking defense. Whereas Gonzaga, yes, number 1 offense, but we know how far down the board they are on defense. And this is just generally the time of year where Gonzaga, they make every Sweet 16 and then they can't figure it out from here. I think when I put out my UCLA play, I got a lot of the public feedback on Twitter. They're too dinged up. This is the Zags here, which makes me kind of like the UCLA play better, obviously. I feel like public money, that going into the later game, especially if like people make money on the early games, if some of the public heavier sides hit in the early games, people are going to start to go to Gonzaga in that late game because of UCLA being dinged up. And I just think they fill those holes nicely. Like as amazing as Jalen Clark was, they have Armani Bailey, one of the best freshmen in the country, filling in like 36 minutes now, averaging 17 points per game since Clark went down. He's a guy that on my follow the money hit, I gave out his over on his point prop at 14.5. I think UCLA still has the guys. So ultimately, my favorite side tonight, I think is going to be UCLA. And I'm going to be a little heavier on it than I would advise most to be because of the 18-1 Zags future that I have in pocket.
I'll start up top. My actual number was Tennessee 5 and a hook with a 130. I'm seeing right now it's circa 5.5 with a 129.5. We know all the success of the unders that were coming in Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Overs peeked their head into the door Sunday for a handful of those. A Florida Atlantic team that quietly's got now about almost 35 wins. The bracket opened up very nicely for them. Jules, I did 3 brackets in total, but I always count my first one as the real one. And I had Tennessee going to the Final Four. And when I did it, I was cringing because I thought they could lose the first round very easily. Had that with Bama, Houston, UCLA, Houston, Bama, Houston 71-67 as the winner. But breaking down that Florida-Tennessee game, 5 and a hook and a 129.5. What are you saying?
Seems like Florida Atlantic's getting a lot of love. And Conference USA is hot right now. They're on this streak. They're proving themselves in the NIT, if that means anything to you. Now, what exactly has Florida Atlantic done in this tournament? They got pretty lucky against Memphis. I was on Memphis. I was a little frustrated about that one. That's a coin flip win where luck kind of went their way. And then they got Fairleigh Dickinson coming off their biggest win in program history. So, like, if anyone has done close to the least to make the Sweet 16, it's probably FAU. Now, it's going to be different than the Duke game. The Duke game for Tennessee was like, size on size, and they made that physical against a lot of freshmen. This is a more veteran FAU team, a more athletic, smaller team that runs the floor. So whose pace and whose style of play is going to prevail here is the question for me. So many people are getting on FAU with the points. It's kind of like, I know they haven't lost many games. They also haven't played many games or played much competition high level in those games. So, like, if it gets to 4.5, I would have a hard time passing on Tennessee. That said, this is going to be such conflicting styles. I probably just want to sit back and watch the game. And as I'm watching it, that could open up an in-game opportunity. If it's clearly a Tennessee style game, live bet the under. If it's clearly an FAU style game, live bet the over. You can Tennessee went down early to Duke as well. Maybe if FAU gets up a little early and this gets closer to a pick, I would really have a hard time not taking Tennessee. So this game screams live betting to me, just based on the matchup.
It's funny because it's almost like the writing on the wall. Everyone knows Rick Barnes' track and past history in the dance, and the whole world was on Duke. I mean, Duke's true number was 1. The public steamed it up to 3.5, almost 4 in some shops. And then, of course, Tennessee comes crashing the party. Now I see all those spurned Duke players saying, all right, listen, if you can beat Duke like that, obviously you can beat Florida Atlantic. And it's just almost like one of those train wrecks ready to happen.
Yeah, like I said, it's a different game than Duke. Duke was size on size, and the older veteran team made it physical and won. You're not going to have as much of a chance to get as physical with FAU because they're just going to have smaller guys and try and run. So it's going to be a different game. But like if Tennessee can prevent that early, I have a hard time imagining that FAU is going to fix something that finds a way to do that, because they just kind of do what they do. It's not like you can find a way in the game plan to force transition almost when it's not happening for you. And Tennessee's good at preventing that. That's how they beat teams like an Alabama in the regular season, like a Kansas in the regular season. So this one I gotta see before I get anything going in it. And I might not get anything going in it. It might not work out, but this will be one that I'm looking to get an in-game.
Second game, Michigan State, Kansas State. It's funny. I'm looking at one of my spreadsheets showing a true number of Michigan State won, who is now currently 1.5 with a 138. I know the actual true number was K-State -1. There was a flip in this game. Hats off to Tom Izzo. I heard something last week that I just thought was brilliant. I don't have the exact number, but it was something like Izzo's like 24-7 in the second round games straight up. And so what he told his team very simply was, hey guys, go win round 1. I'll take care of round 2 and win that for us, with that one day to try to prepare. K-State, kind of one of those under the radar teams that I loved on Sunday against Kentucky. Now, you buying the sizzle or you buying the steak here? Michigan State and Kansas State.
Yeah, this is a tough game for me, and I ultimately lean to Kansas State, but I don't know. This is kind of one of those ones where you look back to like what were these teams preseason almost, and it would be like, oh, well, Michigan State is the easy choice here. You don't want to overlook what Kansas State has done, of course. But in the last round, we saw Michigan State go up against a Marquette team that won the Big East regular season, won the Big East tournament, but wasn't ranked preseason. And what do those highly seeded teams that weren't ranked preseason, kind of overachieved in the regular season, do? Marquette lost in the second round. Purdue lost in the first round. Those were the 2 teams that got 1 and 2 seeds that weren't ranked preseason. So my concern is like, what if Kansas State falls back a little bit to the team that was picked to finish dead last in the Big 12, and you have a Michigan State team that has been ranked at times this season? That said, Kansas State hasn't fallen back at all. Like, they've never reverted. They've been foot on the gas the whole way. And it's almost like a similar one playing Kentucky in the last round. It's like, Kentucky was a favored 6 seed over a 3. Why? Because Kentucky was nationally ranked very high preseason. They have all the talent, and we're going to favor that team in the power rankings. So it's almost like a repeat of that, except you pick who's better, Kentucky or Michigan State. I don't have much of an opinion there, I guess. So if those 2 teams are similar and we're getting K-State as a dog again, unless there's any huge red flag, I would say Izzo a better coach than Calipari. That would be what gives me more pushback here. But I think it's a really similar spot to take K-State. And I will say, like, Marquise Noel is a New York City point guard. This game's at MSG. Tyson Walker, Michigan State, is a New York City point guard. So, like, it'll mean a lot to both of those guys. Whatever I say about this game, I can say something about the other side. So I would take what I think is the better team as the short dog if you made me play it.
Again, we already touched about it. I'm saving the best for last, obviously. UCLA 1.5 for the 145.5. That total hasn't moved, and still UCLA 1.5. We've already discussed this one, but gun to head, UCLA Zags. Who do you got moving on? You had UCLA?
UCLA is my bet. Yeah, that's the first thing. That's probably my best bet for Thursday night. The first thing I bet.
All right. Arkansas, Connecticut. My true number was 4.5 for the 139. I'm seeing now 4 with the 140. We have 18 to 1 on UConn, 40 to 1 or 35 to 1 on Arkansas. Obviously, you know, and everyone here knows my story. 2 girls, 1 graduated at UConn, 1 a freshman at UConn, season ticket holder. 3 seasons for the Huskies. 14-0, number 2 in the country, beats Oregon by almost 30, beats Alabama by 13, just absolutely rolling. Big East, lose on New Year's Eve at Xavier. A couple days later, lose at Providence. That's the Big East. Any game you win on the road, you should cherish it and just take care of home court. And then picked off by Xavier in the Big East tournament. I'm sorry, Marquette in the semis. I had said all along, I thought Creighton was built for that long run in this tournament, and they've gotten the easier bracket, I should say. In comes the Muss Bus, Elite 8 last year, lost to Duke, been here. I lean the coaching edge to Musselman and Arkansas here. On paper, UConn, they've had grab-ass first halves, then they blow out Iona, they blow out St. Mary's. Give us your thoughts here.
Definitely coaching edge Arkansas, like you said, and that's not coming from a bitter Rhode Island Ram with Hurley leaving. He just, Hurley should have called a timeout in that Big East game at MSG when they got an awful shot off against Marquette. And Musselman always gets his guys going this time of year. This is a different team than those last teams that made runs. They're much younger. They're also arguably more talented. They're going to have a couple of lottery picks with those freshman guards. They have good transfers. They have some size and not as much size as UConn, though. So this is a tough game for me. I like both of these teams a lot. I ultimately went UConn because what I've been doing in games this time of year is going with the teams with balance. UConn is top 15 in offensive and defensive efficiency. Arkansas is great on the defensive end, not so efficient on offense, and it shows with their jump shooting. They don't have shooters, especially when Nick Smith is off the floor, which he was against Kansas, and they still won that game. But Arkansas is going to have to make shots against a really good defense to win this game, and that's something that they've struggled with at times this season. So I'm going to say they struggle with it again and go to UConn. But I'm terrified of going against Arkansas. It's not a team that I want to be going against this time of year. Who do you have in this game, Jeff? That's what I want to know.
Shout out to Kenny Magna, our horse guy here at ECSI in Vegas. Was at Dom's last night, South Point. Give a shout out to the boys at Veasan, Kenny. Give a shout out to the hot dog cart. They'll be warming up before you know it. You're up early. You're drafting today, I assume, for the NFBC. Tell the boys they are missed. I will be sending you our alerts the rest of the weekend since you're in Vegas. Thank you, Kenny. You know what? UConn has not seen the athleticism or the speed, the talent of Arkansas yet in this tournament. In other words, no disrespect to Iona. No disrespect.
Yeah. I will
No
say
di-
cakewalk. I meant to say I don't have much respect for St. Mary's. That's kind of the analytics darling. My biggest bet of the tournament so far was UConn to make the Sweet 16, which was priced at minus 115 on DK Sportsbook. I thought the path was too easy. But like UConn out of conference has smashed teams. They smashed Alabama. Now they got them early, maybe before they were peaking, but like they've dealt with the size and athleticism of these really good SEC teams.
No doubt. And I said all along, they're going to go as far as Jordan Hawkins takes them. And obviously, Sunogo's been a beast the first 2 games. I just think this is and you're right. Their non-conference schedule, they were playing amazing, 14-0, number 2 in the country. Now, with that said, 4 days now after the first weekend, they finally get through this. I have to trust and respect the opening number, Julian. I really do. I honestly think that the number's high, and that's why you're getting Arkansas money. I really think that's a big thing here because I think this should be about a 2.5 point spread. So they're really, my number is 4.5 with a 140. I think this has got, I'll tell you right now, 75-70 UConn. I'll give you the final rate there. 74-69 UConn.
I played it at 3.5, small. I wouldn't play it at 4.5. And one of the things, so I like Texas on Friday night too, just to go there. I think Texas is going to beat Xavier, but that has grown from 4 to 4.5. 4.5 in those games are tough. I would moneyline parlay UConn and or Texas on their own with Creighton. Great run for Princeton. They got awful games from Arizona and Missouri. They're not going to be able to figure out Creighton unless Creighton completely craps the bed and just misses every shot. Creighton's way too versatile, way too talented. So, I don't do many money line parlays in the tournament, but I think this is a good spot for that. It's rare that you're going to get a double-digit Sweet 16 favorite, but Creighton's a really good team, and this is generally when Cinderella falls apart a little bit, unless you're St. Peter's. St. Peter's is the only one ever to advance, and who did they do it against? A Purdue team that cannot win in the NCAA tournament. Creighton has a good coach and better players and well-rounded. I will puke. I have a 40-1 ticket on them. I will puke if I'm leaving it unhedged. I'll puke if Creighton loses this game. But I'm telling you, if you like UConn or Texas, I think the safer route at this time of year, you need them to win by 5. You're talking you could be up 7 in this game and last possession of 3. That's pretty good margin there, 7, and you could still not get the cover. I would just moneyline parlay with Creighton, and as long as Creighton does not completely blow it, you feel much more comfortable about that other game.
And it's funny, we went against Princeton twice in the first 2 games. We had over in the first game Arizona and Princeton, and Arizona just pulled an absolute no-show. And then we had the team total on Missouri over against Princeton. And it was like the amoeba defenses. I mean, Missouri couldn't throw it in the ocean. Everyone I'm talking to saying this is a smash, and we've talked to Creighton at length, but they're telling you, hey, great run, Arizona, great first weekend. Make sure you're only packed for 1 day, please, because you're not playing on Sunday next week of this week.
Yeah. These games, this is a weird Sweet 16. We'll get to Friday, but big spreads on these games. So I think with the board being a little different, you have to handle it and handicap it a little bit differently.
Okay, I'm not going to have you obviously tomorrow like Veasan, but we'll quickly go down through Friday here. Miami and Houston, obviously I got a future on Miami. The point guard looks a little healthier. This is what I've said about Houston so far. They play grab ass in the first half and kick ass in the second half. And when you watch them play, they're like men among boys. And they're just, man, they can just flat out, when they want to ball, they can ball. A Miami team coming in, great season. Shout out to TJ. He's a big Miami fan. I had a 7 with a 138 right now. Circa 7 with a 138 and a hook. What's your thoughts there?
I would be surprised if Houston doesn't win this game. There's another money line parlay piece for you if you want it. I had Auburn +8 was the opener on DraftKings Sportsbook against them. Up 10 at halftime, lose the second half by 27. I'm kicking myself for not playing Auburn first half. And I played it because I wanted to get the good number before it moved down. If I had waited, I would have maybe played first half because of how Houston plays all these games, really. So I'm kicking myself over that. But yeah, when Houston wants to turn it on, they can turn it on. This is another game like the Tennessee game is going to be for me tonight. This is my game on Friday night that I'm looking to get in live. Miami first half, are they +3.5 or 4? They might be 4. That's probably not a bad bet if you like the Miami side. If you like the Miami side, I would take +4 first half over 7 for the game for sure. But yeah, I'm going to sit back, see how that game goes. And if Houston messes around again and is in a tied or losing at the half, I'm going to play Houston second half. And if that doesn't win, then I'm just going to be pissed because of Saturday night against Auburn. But yeah, surprised if Houston doesn't win, and I'm looking to get in live maybe on a Houston second half.
Xavier, Texas, 4.5 with a 148 now. Circa 4.5 with a 149. Couple things pre-tournament. I didn't think Xavier deserved a number 3 seed, first of all. Second of all, should have lost to Kennesaw State in my mind. Really like Texas going far in this side of the bracket as well. Was surprised with the 4.5, meaning to me, knowing the Texas following, I'm not saying they able to put it to 5.5, but it just seems like everyone's going to be on Texas here, Julian.
It does, and it finally started moving to kind of validate that. I was kind of worried about it sitting at 4 and everybody betting Texas and it not moving, and I was like, what am I missing? And now it's starting to move. And by the time we get to Friday night, 9:45 tip, should be 5, right? You would think.
Yes.
So I just think it's not. I just think it's not moving yet because of it's the last game of them all to tip on Friday night. So I'm saying the market's just moving late, and I think it's still Texas for me. Now I got it 3.5, and I also have some Texas 4-1 to win the region. So I'm playing ahead to that Houston game. So I don't want to get overly exposed here, but now that it's at 4.5, again, if you're not invested here, I would money line, and these are 2 games with the 9:00 window tips on Friday night. I would parlay Creighton and Texas on the money line and not have to win by 5 here, which I think is a big ask in a Sweet 16 game. Texas will overmatch Xavier in my mind. They're going to win that game, but I don't want to overlook Xavier and good guards and a good big in Nunge. So these are tough numbers, and I think having a Creighton play a Princeton in a round like this that we don't normally get gives you a money line parlay piece to buy down these 4.5, 5-point favorites that usually isn't there.
I'll just, top of my head, call me crazy or not here. Let's just play the game. Texas advance, Houston advances. In my mind, I read the market. Houston opens -3.5. That means they want Houston money. Houston opens -5. They want Texas money. Where do you think the opening number might be, Houston and Texas?
I think it opens short, and I think they want Houston money. I think Texas is the sharper play in that game. Houston hasn't seen anything like Texas in ages, and they still won't. Let's say they beat Miami. We're saying they beat Miami in this situation. They still won't. But what did Houston do earlier and Memphis has given them issues lately, but earlier in the year, they lost to Alabama at home. I think they're going to have, and that's probably the only thing that only team they've played that's as good as Texas. I think that this is where it comes into play, that they haven't played a game like this in a long time, and Texas has. They beat Kansas 2 times in a week. They play every day in the Big 12. They play Baylor's. They play K-State's, all the other good teams in that conference. So this is where I think that shows. They're similarly constructed teams, both really good on defense, slight edge to Houston, both good on offense, edge to Texas. I think Texas prevails in a game like that because they've played in games like that all year, whereas Houston hasn't. And when they did, they hosted an Alabama team that's really good that beat them.
I had San Diego State getting to this spot, playing an Alabama team where my number was 6.5 with a 138. It's now 7.5 with a 137.5. There's 2 ways this game opens up. Alabama, guns a-blazing. Brandon Miller got the first weekend behind him, few more days to rest, clear the membranes here. I can see them coming out 7 from 9 from 3, getting out big and not looking back, because that's not conducive to San Diego State. You and I both know, listen, they play hard-nosed defense. They never get the respect that they deserve. They've had a great season. I assume you have Alabama, not easily, but moving on. Is the number here to entice us for San Diego State, or do you think the number's fair here?
I think the number's fair. I won't be laying any points with Alabama and probably not taking any points with San Diego State. I have Alabama minus 105 to reach the Elite Eight. So that's an Alabama minus 105 money line ticket in this game that I'll leave alone. And I've added, like I said, that side of the bracket, open path for Alabama. And I see the matchup being against Creighton to go to the Final Four. So I've already added to Alabama to make the Final Four as somewhat of a Creighton hedge almost off that ticket. Now I'm playing with fire because I'm looking ahead to the matchup that I need to get. But I did that anyway. And I played some Alabama plus 180 on DK Sportsbook. They're down to plus 150 to reach the final. Because that side of the bracket, you're going to get Tennessee, Michigan State, K-State, FAU. That's the matchup to go to the final. So I already want them immediately in that game. So I played that already too. And we'll see if, I've spun, a genius web or if it just crashes and burns. We'll find out, to be determined. But I like the Alabama in this game. I don't need to touch the money line. San Diego State's getting some sharp action at that number. And you're talking about like the hard-nosed defense. KenPom defensive, adjusted defensive efficiency. San Diego State's 5. Alabama's 3. Alabama's the better defensive team by the numbers. Let's call it even. I don't get how Alabama ranks 18th offensively. San Diego State is 70th. That gap, I don't know if it's going to land. I don't know if this game is going to land 6-7 or 8-9 and the spread will come into play, or if it's going to land 20. Like, I don't know, but I do not see San Diego State coming through in this game. Whatever San Diego State does defensively, let's say it comes out pro San Diego State and it's a rock fight. I don't see how Alabama doesn't break away in the second half with the offense. San Diego State doesn't have the offense to keep up. So if I'm playing something on this game, it's a first half under, because I think San Diego State will make a point to have their game plan coming out. And maybe Alabama plays into it, and Alabama's defense won't allow San Diego State to score. So I could see a slow start. Alabama will go on a run at some point that San Diego State's not able to overcome and win this game. We'll see if they cover or not. But that's how I see this game. I don't see San Diego State having enough to keep up offensively.
I think, too, that the defensive numbers on KenPom, when you're playing Alabama and you have a game plan and then you blink and go to the beer line and they're on an 11-0 run in, a minute. You start shooting threes and doing stuff that you're not accustomed to doing.
Right.
And so that's why their defensive numbers are as good as they are. But I again, this one, I think this is Alabama's coming out party. I think that they're just coming in guns a-blazing. And as much as I like San Diego State, I can see a double-digit winner here easily. Did I lose you?
You broke up with me for a minute there, but I think I'm back.
Okay, you're
whatever
back.
You said sounds good. Whatever you said, as long as you think Alabama's going to win, sounds good to me.
And quick couple seconds, Princeton, Creighton, 10 with a 140, now 10 with a 139. I think the number, they can't make the number big enough to get Princeton money.
Well, let me check out our splits. Pete, you forget how much the public loves Cinderella this time of year. People were betting Princeton. And when I had Johnny Avello, director of DraftKings Sportsbook, on my podcast on Tuesday, he said if you like Princeton, you should take them now because they might be on the move. Yeah, at DraftKings, here you go. At DraftKings Sportsbook, 76% of the tickets are on Princeton with the points. And here, you want this? 35% of the tickets for 56% of the handle, Princeton money line. Go figure. The small money, 65% of the tickets for 44% of the handle is on the Creighton money line. I don't understand how it's not higher than that because those splits include money line parlays, and I assume people are including Creighton in their money line parlays. I don't know. That terrifies me. Is Princeton money line a sharp bet or something now? Because I need Creighton to win this game. Got him money line parlayed and got him 40-1, and as of now, there's no hedge yet. We'll see if I take some plus 10 on Friday night if I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. I don't know. I haven't decided yet.
40-1 buys a lot of diapers, Julian.
It does. Now, I won't be getting all that 40-1 because I've already thrown so much on Alabama because they're in that region. Interesting. That game has the most interesting splits on the board, I would say.
I'm gonna have you back on Tuesday. I have to just throw this up there. I've been talking for months and months and months and more months about Jaylen Brown. I have talked about, the off season. I talked about the start of the season. I'm the one that said that he was going to get traded the night of the trade deadline to the Brooklyn Nets for KD. Then he gets the elbow in the nose, and then 4 hours later, KD goes to Phoenix. This past week, New York Post, yada, 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 the rumblings. He's not happy. Just a small part of the Celtics nation and fan base. I heard a local talk about he's trying to get the sympathy card with the writers because he needs that All-NBA because, to get that Supermax. Can you tell me your thoughts on what's going on right now, A, with Jaylen Brown, and then B, with 9 games or 8 games left with the Celtics?
Yeah, I don't disagree with the take that Jaylen Brown's trying to get that All-NBA nod because that's worth a ton of money to him, a ton of money. So even if he winds up in Boston long-term, he's going to be a richer man in Boston long-term if he gets that nod. So I don't disagree with that. It's a little uncomfortable now that this is coming back up. It just gives you second thoughts of does Jaylen Brown want to be here? And if he does, that's the only question I need to know. It's not about basketball fit. It's not about anything. It's about if Jaylen Brown wants to be here, I'm paying him. And if he gets all NBA and it's more money, then it's more money. It's not my money. It's ownership's money. And they've said they'll go over these taxes to win championships. And if you have a Tatum Brown core at their age, you have that window open for many years. So the ownership will do that. If Jaylen Brown doesn't want to be here, then the answer is very simple. You have to cut bait and take the best offer, because you can't turn around and get nothing. So it's very black or white decision in my mind. Now I don't know what Jaylen Brown truly personally feels, but that's, Brad Stevens' job and the rest of the team's job to know what that true answer is and then respond appropriately.
It's been a couple weeks. DraftKings, I got to tell you, I love everything you guys offer. It's a kid in a candy store on steroids. There's nothing you guys don't have. Hats off. I love our Tuesday mornings and now obviously our Thursdays. Can you give the public any promos to look for or any Julian Edlow specials as we get closer to tip-off in 6, 7, 8 hours?
Yeah, I'm sure I got to start looking at these before I come on, but I'm sure that there's promos. We had plenty of them. Now, it's not going to be as good as it was, guys. We celebrated the Massachusetts launch. We gave out a lot of, not allowed to use some terms, we gave out a lot of no-brainer bonus bets that won you money, and there was never a question of if they would win you money. All right, if you like Michigan State and Tennessee tonight, you get a 25% boost on a parlay on those. There's a 16% profit boost on any game. So there, like if you like UConn, use a 16% boost and play money line maybe. Like that's getting you a lot closer to a good number. It looks like that's what we have for college basketball tonight. Obviously, the 16 is a Sweet 16 promo, so that'll probably be there again tomorrow. So yeah, just hit that promos and rewards tab, and daily there'll be something there for you. You might not use it every day, but there'll be something that can help you there, most likely for things that you're going to be betting on.
I got to tell you this, my last $25 bonus bet from DraftKings. You ready for this one?
Mm-hmm.
Rory McIlroy to win the Masters, the Milwaukee Bucks to win the NBA championship, and the Toronto Maple Leafs to win the Stanley Cup.
You're using them right because, as I tell people, just, bonus bets, you don't get those. If you bet 25 to win 22 on a minus 110, you don't get that 25 back. You just get the 22. So, and they're free. So use them on your futures, use them on big plus money, and use your own money on your straight bets. Take the big hacks, try and make your bonus bets worth it. Get some big chunks back.
Well, I'm just telling you, it came back plus 36,800 and something. So the $25 paying almost 10K. So if it does hit, I'm taking you over to the Encore for a night out with the boys. How's that?
I'm rooting for it. It sounds like it'll be taken care of by my employer. So call it a business dinner.
Shout out to Connor. Good morning, Connor. Marty Lowe, Kenny Magner, Julian. You can go follow him at Julian Edlow, at DraftKings, at DK Sportsbook, at DK Live, at The Unreasonable Podcast, on VSiN this morning, on again tomorrow morning. Julian, I can't thank you enough. Have an amazing weekend, and I'll see you on Tuesday.
All right. Always a pleasure. Thanks, Jeff.
Take care, Jules. The one and only Julian Edlow at DraftKings, at DK Sports, at DK Live Nation. Go follow him. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, ask him. Hey, I'm on the DraftKings Sportsbook, and I'm looking for this. I'm looking for this. Reach out to him. He will then reach out to them, and hopefully we can get it on. In about 11 minutes, John Merges live from Florida. We're going to go over the carnage of last weekend, talk again about today's games, and get everyone situated. Can't thank you guys enough. If you're not following on YouTube, please jump over to YouTube at East Coast Sports Investors. Subscribe. It's free. Turn on all those notifications. Don't miss a live show. Have a good morning, and I'll see you back in about 10 minutes. Take care.